The sea holds no secrets, or so we believe. We gaze at its blue surface, its apparent calm, its endless horizon. And we think of peace, of vacations, of paradises. But the sea, like men, knows how to keep its darkest stories hidden in its depths, where no light can reach. Today we are going to the coast of Guerrero, a place where the sun kisses the golden sand. But we are going to a beach that knows no warmth, only the cold of fear. To a place where paradise was a prison, and a father's love was the most monstrous of sentences. This is the story of Ismael, the fisherman, and of the secret family he created and maintained with his own daughters on an island that the world had forgotten. A story about how loneliness can rot a soul, and how the law can be blinder, deafener, and crueler than justice itself. I am Padre del Valle, and this is Realidad Mexico. Before the tide takes us to that island, to that hell disguised as beauty, I want to ask you something. It's not for me. It's for them. For Luna and Coral, names that are poetry, but who lived a nightmare in prose. If you believe that incest is not a family matter, but a crime that concerns us all. If you are outraged that a uniform and a desk can be accomplices to horror through simple indifference, through pure cowardice. If you refuse to accept that geography is an excuse for abandonment and barbarism, then subscribe to this channel. Raise your voice with us. Let the echo of your click join ours to break this silence. Because silence is the sand where the bones of the innocent are buried. Now, get on board. The journey is short, but the horror is eternal. The man who discovered hell was called Damian Solis. He was a Coast Guard corporal, young, barely 23 years old, fresh out of the academy. He had the sea in his blood and an idea of justice taken from the manuals. Straightforward, clear, unequivocal, black and white. An idea that the reality of Guerrero, with its thousands of shades of gray, would shatter. He had been assigned to a small port, one of those that live off the day's catch and occasional tourism. A place where everyone knows each other, and where secrets are protected with fierce loyalty, a loyalty made of fear and convenience. His work was routine, boring most of the time. Patrols under a relentless sun, checking fishing permits, watching out for gasoline smuggling or poaching. Day after day, the same routine. The same smell of salt, fish, and diesel. It was during those patrols that he began to notice Ismael Galvan. The hermit, the other fishermen called him. A man of few words and deep gaze. He didn't mess with anyone. No one messed with him. The other fishermen respected him. Or maybe they feared him. They said the best with a net, they said. He knows the sea like the back of his hand. He talks to the waves, others joked. But there was something strange about him, a loneliness that was not peace, but absence. He lived alone, in a small hut at the northern end of the beach, away from everyone. But every 2 or 3 days, Damian saw him loading his boat not only with nets and gasoline, but also with sacks of rice, beans, flour, with cans of preserves. Too much food for one man. And he always headed in the same direction, toward the point on the horizon where a dark spot could be made out. A small island an hour off the coast. Lost Island, they called it. A rocky outcrop of volcanic rock and mangroves that didn't appear on tourist maps. No one went there. It was said that the currents were dangerous, that it was full of snakes, stories to scare the curious. But Ismael went, religiously. Damien, out of curiosity, noted it in his logbook, an insignificant detail. An anomaly in the monotony, or so he thought. One Tuesday, during a routine patrol, the engine of his interceptor failed. A metallic sound, a few coughs, and then silence. They were adrift, just as they were passing near Lost Island. The radio wasn't working properly. Help would take hours to arrive. "Let's go to the island," Damien said to his partner, a senior sailor named Beto. "It's better to wait on dry land." Beto looked at him doubtfully. "There's nothing there, Corporal, and they say it's bad luck." "We've already got bad luck," replied Damian. They maneuvered with difficulty to a small cove hidden among the rocks, a place invisible from the open sea. The sand was white, fine as dust. The water was an unreal turquoise. It looked like a postcard, an unspoiled paradise. And in the middle of that postcard, there was a cabin, built from shipwrecked wood, rusted zinc sheets, and palm leaves. Primitive, but functional. There was a fishing net drying in the sun. Some shells were piled up. Damian's heart began to beat a little faster. This was Ismail's hideout. He approached cautiously, his boots sinking into the sand. Beto stayed by the boat, as if an invisible force field prevented him from moving forward. "Hello. Is anyone there?" Damien shouted. His voice sounded strange in the silence. The door of the hut, which was just a thick piece of cloth, moved. And out of the darkness came two figures, two girls. The older one was no more than 20 years old. The younger one was perhaps 16. They were barefoot. They wore tattered clothes, almost rags, made from scraps of faded fabric. Their hair was long, jet black, tangled from the sun and salt. Their skin was sunburned. But they were beautiful. They had a wild, untouched beauty, like flowers growing in a crack in the rock. And they had the same eyes as Ismail. Deep eyes, the color of the sea in a storm. They saw Damien and his uniformed companion and backed away in fear, like two wild animals seeing a man for the first time. "Calm down," Damien said, his voice as soft as he could make it. "We're from the Coast Guard. We had a problem with the boat. We're not going to hurt you." The girls didn't answer. They just looked at each other, their eyes wide open. A silent, urgent communication passed between them. The older one, who appeared to be several months pregnant, stood in front of the younger one, protecting her with her body. "Are you alone here?" Damien asked. The younger one shook her head very slowly. "Dad went to town," she whispered. Her voice was a thread, fragile, broken from disuse. "And your mother?" asked Beto from the shore. The question hung in the heavy, humid air. It was like throwing a stone into a well of silence. The two girls looked at each other again, naked panic in their eyes. The older one, whom I would later learn was named Luna, gestured. She pointed to the younger one, Coral. Then she pointed to herself. Her lips trembled, as if searching for a word that did not exist in her vocabulary. And then, in a voice devoid of emotion, as if she were reciting a fact as natural as the rising of the sun, she said the words that would open the abyss. "She's my mom, and I'm her." Damien frowned. He didn't understand. "What?" Luna seemed to search for a simpler explanation. She took a deep breath, and she said it another way. "My dad is our husband." Damian Solis's world tilted on its axis. The sound of the waves crashing against the rocks suddenly became violent, monstrous. The midday sun, which had been warm before, now burned his skin, the back of his neck. He felt a bitter, metallic taste in his throat, a mixture of salt and bile. He looked at his companion. He saw his own disbelief, his own horror reflected in Beto's pale face. The air was filled with unspoken words, with a horror that had no name in the academy textbooks. He looked at Luna, her swollen belly, the source of that life. He looked at Coral, the girl woman beside him, the victim, the wife. And in her eyes, he no longer saw beauty. He saw a cage, an invisible cage built with salt water, fear, and loneliness. Damian felt that his Mexican Navy uniform weighed tons, that the weapon at his side was a useless, ridiculous piece of metal. He wanted to say something, to scream, to ask questions. But the words were stuck in his throat, drowned out by the monstrosity of the confession. He closed his eyes for a moment, trying to process it all. The image of the two sisters standing in front of him was burned into his eyelids. That phrase, "My dad is our husband," a phrase that broke all the rules. The rules of men, those of nature, and those of God. He opened his eyes. The postcard had become a crime scene, and he was the only witness. They asked no more questions. What else could they ask? They repaired the boat's engine as best they could, in a tense, heavy silence. Their hands moved clumsily. Their minds were elsewhere. In the cabin, with them, as they moved away from the island, Damian looked back. Luna and Coral were still there on the beach. Two small, fragile dots against the immensity of the sea and the jungle, watching the world go away, leaving them alone, again, with their secret, and with their father. That night, Damian vomited in the barracks bathroom. He vomited his rage, his disgust, the helplessness. In the small room in the barracks, Damian did not sleep. The phrase echoed in his head over and over again. The next morning, he waited at the pier. He saw Ismael's boat approaching, a familiar silhouette that now seemed diabolical to him. When Ismael tied up the boat, Damian intercepted him. He took him to the office. Ismael didn't seem worried. He followed him with disconcerting calm. He sat down across from Damian. His fisherman's hands, calloused and strong, rested on his knees. Damian didn't beat around the bush. "I was on the island, Ismael. Yesterday, I saw your daughters." Ismael's face didn't change. Not a twitch. Not a hint of surprise. "They're my girls," he said in a flat voice. "Luna is pregnant," said Damian, his own voice trembling with contained rage. "She told me. Coral told me. They told me you're the father." Ismael looked up, and in his eyes there was no shame, there was no guilt, there was no fear. There was a terrifying conviction, an absolute certainty. "They're my family," he said. "My only family. I take care of them. I protect them from the world." And then, as if opening a floodgate, he began to tell the story, his version of the story. His wife, Elena, had died giving birth to Coral. A fever. Hemorrhaging. She was gone in one night. She left him alone, with a 5-year-old daughter, Luna, and a newborn baby. "This town is a bad place, Cabo," Ismael said, his voice growing feverish. "You don't know it. Full of vicious men, drunks, drug addicts, full of evil. Women who abandon their children, men who beat them." He recounted an incident, a party in the village, a fight. A man stabbed with a broken bottle. I saw that blood in the street, and I thought, am I going to let my girls grow up here? Become like the others? Let some drunk touch them? Number never. He made a decision. He would get them out of there. He would take them to a pure place, to his paradise, to the island. He told everyone that his late wife's family from the mountains had taken them away to raise them. No one questioned it. People disappear. It's normal. Life is hard. On the island, he was their world, their provider, their protector, their teacher, and their God. He taught them how to fish, how to read the stars, how to recognize edible plants, to survive. But he didn't teach them the difference between right and wrong, because in his world, only his will existed. When Luna became a woman, when she got her period, Ismael continued without a hint of emotion. I understood that I couldn't let anyone touch her. No man from outside was worthy. None of them were clean. Her mother's blood was good. My blood is good. We had to keep it pure. It was my duty to protect the legacy. Incest was not a sin to him. It was a sacred duty. A way to protect his lineage. A way to create a perfect family, isolated, incorruptible. When Coral grew up, she simply followed the pattern. It was natural. It was all she knew. She had never seen a man and a woman together, except for him and her sister. They have everything they need, Ismael concluded, looking Damian straight in the eye. They have food. They have a roof over their heads. They have each other. And they have me. We are happy. The world can rot. We are safe. Damien listened, feeling like he was drowning. The logic of madness was a thick, suffocating poison. This man wasn't a monster in his own mind. He was a savior, a twisted Noah who had built an ark on an island to save his family from the flood of modernity. And his daughters, his victims, were the inhabitants of that hellish paradise. Damian left that interview with his soul frozen. He ran to his superior's office. Lieutenant Morales, a man about to retire whose main ambition was to get to the end of the month without complications. Damian told him everything. The visit to the island. The girl's confession. Ismael's confession. The lieutenant listened, drumming his fingers on his metal desk. His gaze was lost in the monotonous blue of the sea outside the window. When Damien finished, the lieutenant sighed, a long sigh, full of weariness. "Corporal Solace," he said without turning around. "You've had an interesting day." He paused, as if weighing his words. "But this is not our business. Ismael Galvan is not trafficking drugs. He is not fishing with dynamite. He is not violating maritime sovereignty. What he does on that island with his family is a civil matter. A problem for the police or the DIF. But they are your daughters, Lieutenant. It's incest. It's continuous rape. They have children who are their siblings," exclaimed Damian, feeling frustration rising in his throat. The lieutenant finally looked at him, and for the first time, Damian saw deep, unfathomable fatigue in his eyes. "Solis, how long have you been here?" 3 months. Learn something. Don't look for trouble that isn't yours. Those people on the island have lived like this for years. Who knows how many children she's had? If you get involved, if you make a fuss, the only one who's going to suffer is you. They'll transfer you to the most godforsaken place in the country. Ismael is a nobody, but the people here stick together. They don't like outsiders coming in and telling them how to live." He pointed to a pile of papers on his desk. "Write up your patrol report. Say you had engine trouble, that you waited on the island. That's it. Leave out the personal details. And forget about this. We have more important things to worry about." Damian stood at attention. But inside, everything had collapsed. The system wasn't there to deliver justice. It was there to avoid complications. Ignoring the order, Damien went to the municipal police station. The chief, Vargas, greeted him shirtless, sweating in the afternoon heat. He offered him a warm soda. Damien told him the story. Vargas listened, nodding slowly, as if he were hearing a report of a chicken theft. "Ismael, the hermit?" said Vargas. "Of course I know him. He's a strange guy, but a good man. He doesn't mess with anyone. He always brings us good fresh fish, at a good price." He smiled, revealing a gold tooth. "Look, kid, what you're telling me sounds bad, really bad. But do you have any proof? A video? A recording?" "Ismael's own confession. And the girls on the island, go ask them." "A confession without a lawyer is worthless. And to go to the island, I need a warrant from a judge. And for the judge to give me a warrant, I need a formal complaint. Do any of the girls want to come here to my office and sign a complaint against their daddy?" The question was a mockery. "They're terrified, isolated. They don't even know what a complaint is," said Damian. "Then there's no case," concluded Vargas, shrugging his shoulders. "I can't arrest a man for what you think is going on. It's his word against yours. And he's from here. You're not. Better leave it alone, kid. Sometimes it's better not to stir up dirty water because it splashes." He patted him on the back. "Have another soda. You'll get over your fright." Damien left. The taste of the warm, sweet soda mixed with the taste of rage. His last hope was the diff office in the nearest town, 2 hours away. It was a gray government building that smelled of bleach and despair. The woman who attended him, the coordinator, didn't even introduce herself. She just said, "Speak," without looking up from her monitor. Damien recounted the nightmare on Lost Island for the 3rd time. The woman listened to him as she typed. Her face was a mask of indifference. When Damien finished, she printed out a couple of papers. "Okay," she said, her voice monotone like a robot. "I understand the situation. Here's what you need to do next. I need you to fill out Form 7 BIS, Report of Alleged Violation of Children's Rights." She handed him the paper. Although one of them, Luna, is no longer a minor, and the other, Coral, is barely a minor. So also fill out Form 9C, Notification of Gender Violence in Vulnerable Populations. She handed him another paper. "Once we have the forms, we'll forward them to the legal department. The legal department will ask the public prosecutor's office to open an investigation file. The public prosecutor's office will probably say that it needs more evidence, like a psychological report on the victims. And how are they going to get that if they can't leave the island?" asked Damian, feeling like he was falling into a paper trap. The woman looked at him for the first time. Her eyes were empty. "That's the problem, isn't it? The system has its procedures. We can't skip them. Without a complaint or a report, there's no case. It's a vicious circle." She returned to her screen, as if he no longer existed. When Carmen returned to the office with the evidence, a superior told her, his gaze fixed on a monitor. "Ms. Mendoza, this is now a missing persons case. That's another department's responsibility. Fill out Form 2B prime." The phrase, which she had heard in training courses, hit her with the force of reality. It wasn't an example. It was the operating manual. The system wasn't looking for justice. It was looking to organize the horror into files. Classify it. File it away until it was forgotten. Damian returned to the port. Defeated. Defeated, the sea which he once loved now seemed like an accomplice, a blue blanket hiding the horror. Every time he went out on patrol, he avoided looking toward Lost Island. But the island was there, always. A dark stain on the horizon, a constant reminder of his failure. One afternoon, he saw Ismael's boat approaching the dock. He wasn't alone. He had Luna with him. She was pale, sweating, doubled over in pain. The birth had been complicated. He was taking her to the small health center in town. Damian saw them pass by. Ishmael looked at him, a look of defiance, of triumph. And Damian could do nothing, only watch. Luna gave birth to a girl who was his daughter, and his sister, and his granddaughter. A knot of impossible relationships, born of madness and silence. After a few days, Ismael took them back to the island. The mother and the baby. Back to prison. And the cycle began again. Damian asked to be transferred. He couldn't take it anymore. Before leaving, he did one last thing. A desperate act. He wrote an anonymous report. Detailed, accurate, with names, dates, places. He sent it to an investigative journalist in Mexico City who sometimes exposed cases on social media. There was a bottle thrown into the sea of indifference, hoping that someone, somewhere, would find it and care. The story of Lost Island is not over. As we speak, perhaps another girl is being born on that beach, trapped in a paradise that is hell, waiting for a rescue that may never come. Because the worst monster is not the man who commits the crime. It is the system that, knowing this, chooses to do nothing. I am Padre Del Valle, and I will see you in the next Realidad Mexico.